Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight, wherever you are, wherever you might be, and whatever sense you are interested in Boston College. These programs that we've been running all semester, I think have been pretty creative and pretty unique in terms of talking about the community and culture of Boston College. You can get the statistics anywhere. And I'm saying that as an admissions counselor, you can get the statistics everywhere, but the stories and the ideas, the anecdotes, the experiences of Boston College students and their ideas of the present and the future of Boston College. That's what you really need to understand if you want to know if this is a good place that might be a home for you or places you might be interested in finding out more. I'm your host for tonight. My name is Chris O'Brien. I'm Associate Director of Admissions. And if you see, I'm growing my application reading beard. I've been reading applications for a few days, maybe a couple of yours that are out there viewing. Your application was great, but we haven't finished working with it. So we'll get back to you very soon. But tonight we're talking about humans at Boston College. And funny enough, I've been joined by a few humans at Boston College. Look at how dramatic you are. I'm impressed. So we're going to talk a little bit about some stories of Boston College, because these programs that we've been discussing over the past few weeks, our producer, Jackie Geller, has been great at setting up a view of the residence life at Boston College, a view of clubs and organizations, a view of the traditions at Boston College, all of which are very important. But we haven't really boiled down and talked specifically about stories about the great, exciting surprises that Boston College has had in store for students as they come here, some of the challenges that they've faced, both at the beginning of Boston College and evolving as they grow at Boston College. And then as they look towards the future, how has Boston College got in their way of thinking academically and intellectually and maybe spiritually that's going to be with them for a long time. So they're going to talk about some things that are relatively abstract at times, but we'll also talk about some things that are maybe traditions at Boston College and resources that you would want to understand if this was a place that you might call home. So that's what we have going on today. We certainly could take a few questions. There is a Q&A function on our Zoom. You're welcome to jump in. Of course, if you're watching this in recording, unless you have a time machine, that would be pretty impossible. But still, we hope that we can bring up a lot of topics that are front of your mind, or maybe latent in your mind, that are important to you as you try to understand life at Boston College. So with that out of the way, I want to introduce to you the panel of experts that we've assembled here. And I'm going to have them introduce themselves. And let's just do a quick introduction. Let's go by alphabetical by first name, okay? And these are brilliant people, so they don't need to be directed. They already know who's going to go first. And as you do your introductions, talk about who you are and where you're from and what year you are at Boston College and what you study at Boston College. And then the first question I want the first star of the show to address is, what was their biggest fear of arriving at Boston College? Obviously, the excitement outweighed the fear because they arrived and they unpacked. But talk a little bit about what was the thing that you were the most nervous about upon your arrival at Boston College. So let's do our first introduction.
Sure. So thanks, Chris. Hello, everyone. My name is Ben BARBA. I'm a senior from New Vernon, New Jersey. I'm concentrating in finance in our Carroll School of Management and minoring in philosophy in our Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences. And I think that, when I came into BC, I was pretty nervous about a lot of things. I was a transfer student. I came in for the spring of my sophomore year. And although I was worried about the academics, I'd say that socially, I was probably the most worried. I didn't know how I was going to make friends, especially coming in the spring when only about 20, 25 other students come in. I was sort of concerned that people were already going to have friend groups and I wasn't going to be able to acclimate as easily as I would have liked. And honestly, I thought those fears were, validated within the first week and a half, 2 weeks that I spent at BC. I had made a couple of friends in the transfer orientation, but we were pretty spread out around campus. And other than them, I knew absolutely no one. But I got an email from an older transfer student imploring me to sign up for the Appalachian Volunteers Program, which is a week-long spring break service trip that we do here at BC. And I would love to tell you that I signed up out of some sense of altruism or good Jesuit Catholic values. But I signed up because I wanted to make a couple friends. And I figured that if I could trap 10 or 11 other BC students alone in rural Virginia for a week, I could probably come out with a few friends. And so through the weekly meetings leading up to it and the 12 and a half hour bus ride down to Hurley, Virginia, I was able to convince a couple of them to be my friends, and a lot of them are some of my best friends to this day. One of my friends, Grace, lives right above me. I see her pretty much every day. My friend Sarah, we see each other all the time. We're on like 3 different intramural sports teams together. And it really just introduced me to, the social life at Boston College, how getting involved in clubs and activities really can be a driver in that social life. And it was a huge sort of validating experience for me that really allowed me to feel comfortable here at BC when I really hadn't prior to the trip.
Great, thanks, Ben. And I'm glad that you've been able to keep those friends, especially now that you didn't have them trapped anywhere. That's a good sign for your life to come. All right, so CAITLYN, you're next, and after you tell us a little bit about yourself, ask the same question. And what was your biggest fear? And maybe it was the same, and maybe you negotiated around it different, like not jumping into a van with a bunch of BC students, but maybe you handled it differently. Or maybe your fear was something else. Maybe your fear was academic or being away from home or something else. So let's hear a little bit about you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Chris, and thanks, Ben, for sharing. Hey, friends, it's nice to be here with you all. My name is CAITLYN. I'm a senior. I am studying applied psychology and human development in the Lynch School of Education with a minor in women and gender studies in the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences. And I'm also doing our 5th year Masters of Social Work program here, which is a program where you can kind of get a head start on a graduate degree through the Lynch School of Education. So I've been lucky enough to take some grad classes, and I get to stay 1 extra year at BC, which I'm really excited about. Home for me is New Jersey as well. I'm from a small town called Great Meadows, which is quite literally vast Great Meadows up in Northwest New Jersey. And for me, similar to Ben, I had a lot of fears coming into BC. I went to a really small public high school. A lot of folks and a lot of my friends from my high school didn't leave. A lot of them went straight into the workforce. A lot of them became parents relatively quickly, or went into the military, or went to community college. And so when I came to BC, which I knew was where I wanted to be, I was kind of struck with this sense of isolation and loneliness almost when I got here, because BC is a community. BC is like a family, and a lot of people have people that they know or connections that they've made through the great expanse of what BC allows community to be. But I didn't know any of those, and I didn't know anyone here. And I felt like I was questioning whether or not it was a space that was like meant for me. And I think in those first few months of school, it was hard to come to terms with like putting yourself out there and knowing this was a home, but how to make it feel homey. And a lot of that came through just getting involved with my classes. I was really fortunate to be in an Enduring Questions course in my first semester. And so for folks who aren't familiar with Enduring Questions, it's a class that's co-taught by 2 different professors of 2 different disciplines, bridging together one subject. And so a class that I took was called Where Black Lives Matter Meets Me Too, Violence and Representation in the African Diaspora. And it was a literature and a sociology class of 80 people. And one of the highlights of my freshman year that kind of brought me that sense of home and that I wasn't alone in what I was feeling was our Thursday night reflection sessions. They went from 6 to 8 p.m. Everyone would come with their dinner, and we would sit and we would just talk about what the class meant to us, what it meant to be a student at BC, what it meant to look out in the world and see loneliness, but also look in on ourselves and see how that manifested in campus. So I was grateful to be able to create community in that way. And from there, I was able to have conversations with folks both at BC and also home. So I felt like BC was not only a community I was becoming a part of, but something I was taking back with me on my first Thanksgiving break. And I felt like that ever since. So I think just being able to experience that community, even in a classroom setting, was something I wasn't expecting. And it made BC feel like something that was just as much mine as it was anyone else's.
But that really, I mean, that captured a lot. Between the 2 of you, captured a lot. So thank you. And as we move over to you, Maddie, after we learn a little bit about you, I want you to kind of stick with the academic side. And this could be a chance for you to humbly brag or own up to your fear in terms of the academic expectation. These guys are worried about friends. I'm going to guess that you're not worried about friends. You are more worried about like, what do teachers want from me? It was really hard to get in here. So is everybody super smart and super competitive? Let's talk a little bit about, were you afraid? Were you anxious about the academic climate? and how did you react to that when you got here? So let's learn a little bit about you and address a question like that, which could be on the mind of a lot of people that start BC.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you, CAITLYN. My name is Madison, or Maddie. I am from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm a senior, and I am studying theater in the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences with two minors in environmental studies and dance. Something that definitely was hard for me coming into BC is, so I am, full disclosure, a legacy to BC, and my father went to BC a long, long time ago, and he would always talk to me growing up about how much of a great school BC was and what a Jesuit education meant, and what an impressive feat it was to get into BC and all of these things. So I had very, very high expectations coming into BC, both for me and that were placed on me by my family and all these things that I had heard. I was the only one from my high school to come to Boston College. So when I got here, I remember I had my first exam, and in high school, I was not, let's put it this way, I was not allowed to get B's in high school. So I got my first exam back, and it was a B, and I was crushed, but I sort of had to pick myself up. It was in Perspectives, which is a first-year course that is philosophy and theology together for a whole year. And a B is not the end of the world. It is the beginning. So I sort of had to negotiate with myself what it meant to be a college student. I'm also involved in theater, so I was having rehearsals until about 11 p.m. at the same time. So when you come in as a freshman, it's a lot of sort of refiguring out yourself. I thought I knew what BC was based on what I had heard from my family and otherwise. But it's so important to sort of find that path for yourself. And I took a freshman topic seminar, and we had a warm-up to talk to our neighbor and say one thing that we were struggling with and one thing that we were really excited about. And me and my neighbor, who is still one of my best friends and is actually my neighbor now, we were saying, you know, we're actually struggling a lot to get sort of situated and to find our niche and balance academics, because we both came from schools and programs where it wasn't easier, but, you know, we felt okay with our academics, and finding that connection and being able to talk about it openly was kind of the first step to realize that, you know, college is harder, as it should be. And then we were able to become study friends and work on our classes that way. Yeah.
Maddie, that was a great answer, and thanks for bringing us to those darker days when you were getting B's. I don't know how you were able to handle that kind of that kind of grade, but I'm glad you were able to live through it. You can live through B's at Boston College. You certainly can. Thanks, Maddie. I appreciate it. Last but not least, it's going to be Mary Claire. And Mary Claire, as you introduce yourself, you're the person from the furthest distance away. You're from the Windy City. If they still call it that, I don't know. With global warming, I think every city is kind of windy now. But if you could talk a little bit about the adjustment of really relying on the college community, you know, these yahoos that are from Philadelphia and New Jersey, you know, they could go home, they could find a way home if they needed to. It's a little tougher for someone from Chicago or plane ride away. And talk about the differences that you needed to feel in terms of understanding the community, relying on the community because you were so far from home. That must have been part of your selection of Boston College, but also that first year when you had no other options, you had to make a lot work when you were starting out. So I know that's a lot, Mary Claire, but you're always good at filtering through all that stuff and getting to the point. So let's hear a little about you, and let's talk a little bit about being further away from Boston College and making it work as a first-year student.
Fantastic. Thank you. And thanks everybody else. I have big shoes to fill now. But as Chris said, my name is Mary Claire Scalise. I am a junior. I'm from north of Chicago. So like 10 minutes north of Northwestern University, if anyone's familiar, on the lake.
Thanks for bringing up other schools.
Sorry, I thought about that
Always
right when I said it. Right when I said it, I was
Always
like,
good
oh,
on
no.
the admissions podcast. Well done.
40 minutes from Chicago, I'll put it that
Perfect.
way. And I am a junior and also in the Lynch School studying applied psychology and human development. And then I've got 2 minors in faith, peace, and justice, and then in medical humanities. So I've kind of got widespread interests, clearly. And so, yeah, I guess it's that honestly, that's a good one to bring up for me, because if I was to be asked what was my biggest challenge freshman year and my biggest fear going into it, it definitely would have been the distance. Strange fun fact is that my house is exactly 1,000 miles from Boston College, not 999 or 1,001. I'm exactly 1,000 miles away. And I remember getting to orientation and I was in a suite with 5 other people and everybody except for me was in driving distance. And that was kind of scary because I was like, oh no, like if I'm having a bad weekend, like I can't really just go home. And I've always been a homebody. And my high school graduating class was 27. So throughout my entire life, I have been very like comfortable in my like space, and everyone always has known my name. So having to kind of like pack up a car and know that it was going to take 2 full days to drive, and then getting here, and like I have no relatives like east of Illinois. So I was just on my own. I just like loved BC enough, but I had nobody around me. I was just dropped off, and I was really like reduced to a bundle of nerves at the beginning. I was very homesick. I cried a lot. I called home several times a day at the beginning, and I remember thinking like, I can't do this. I cannot. Like, I really was convinced that the only reason I think I made it through the semester was because I was not allowed to come home. Like I had to stay. And I think at a certain point after a few weeks, I understood just kind of the beauty of putting one foot in front of the other. And when I kind of started, instead of counting down the days until I was going home again, I kind of started to think like, wow, I get to be here. And when I go home, I want to have a really cool story to share. So something really important, a really good piece of advice, I think, was instead of worrying about finding the right people, I try to let the right people find me. So I joined a few clubs. I put myself in public spaces all the time. And I kind of allowed kind of more of a transactional experience where one club in particular, a choir I'm in, a bunch of upperclassmen were very excited and eager to give me advice and to get to know me and to be a conversation partner and like companion, because everyone who's been through freshman year like knows what it's like to be a freshman. And within like days or weeks, my entire mood did a 180. And I was like really happy here. And a really interesting moment I remember was when I was a freshman was when COVID started and we were sent home. And I remember that day thinking, whoa, I'm really sad to go home. I never imagined in August I would be sad to leave here. I was like, all I wanted to do was go home at the very beginning. But then with time and like a lot of grace and a lot of really important friends, it became a place I didn't want to leave. And so, yeah, I don't really know how that touches, if it kind of answers the question you were getting at, but it's definitely an interesting experience.
Perfect. And you know what helped Mary Claire is that 2 years later, we moved a little bit of your family closer to you.
Yeah.
Because your sister is now a first-year student at Boston College.
Yeah, she is. So she's right, like actually a couple buildings that way. So it's, you never know. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad we were able to work that out for you.
Right. Thank you.
So I'm going to ask a series of questions about from whence you started to now. Are you better? So CAITLYN, are you a better student than you were before you came to Boston College? And if so, how? How have you become a better student?
It's a good question. I don't know if better is the word that I would use, I would say I'm a more curious student. I have been introduced to a lot of topics that I never would have chosen to learn about on my own. Based on some of the courses that are in line for you when you come to BC, there are a lot of things that I was uncomfortable with knowing that I was going to be learning about and that I was really nervous to start learning about. One of those things for me was our theology courses. And someone has asked this to me before, and a lot of folks ask the questions like, what were some of your favorite courses at BC? So I hope that's not a future question because I'm going to go ahead and answer it now. But for me, it ended up being my Engaging Catholicism course. And I feel like BC has a really intentional approach about asking you questions that make you question everything that you've ever believed in your life. And that's not some way that I would describe learning before I was a student here. I would have thought that it was, you know, those late night all-nighters where you're studying for your exams and you're memorizing things and you pull out your Quizlet and you're in your study groups. And to say that doesn't happen isn't true. It does happen sometimes. But I think a lot of the introspective learning that I've been accustomed with is, how do you look at the world in front of you and question every piece of it and then make sense of it in conversation? So to say that I'm a better student, I would say that I'm a different student. I think that I've always been someone who's wanted to learn and who's wanted to do well, which I know is what a lot of prospective students are similarly facing coming out of their AP courses and coming out of, you know, having really great educations and really great teachers. But I think BC takes that and flips it on your head and instead asks you, like, here's the information, now what are you going to do with it? And I think that has been what I've taken away from my courses.
Ben, are you a better communicator now than you were before you came to Boston College? And if so, how?
Yeah, so I did this over the summer. For the past 2 summers, I was a tour guide and a panelist. And the reason that I chose to do that was because I wanted to be a better communicator, a better public speaker. And in terms of public speaking, I think my confidence has grown immensely over my time being involved with the student admissions program. But, you know, beyond that, at a higher level, I think that communication is a huge part of the Boston College experience. I know that when I came in, I was transferring from a school that was very focused on business, and it didn't really allow me to take much of the liberal arts subjects that I wanted to. And coming to BC, you know, I really wanted to explore liberal arts, and I began to see the value in great communication, whether that's verbal communication, including public speaking, or written communication. And I think that through my philosophy classes, through my literature classes, my history classes, really every class, I've had to write a lot. And at first, that was something I was uncomfortable with just because I'd been out of practice for at least 1.5 years from actually writing academic papers. But BC really helped me out through the first year writing seminar and our online writing lab, what we call OWLS. It sort of got me up to speed and really sort of jump started my ability to, you know, become a better communicator. And, you know, I've taken classes specifically about becoming a better communicator. I took a business communication class within the business school as an elective, and it really sort of showed me how intentional you can be about communicating and how the little differences that, you know, how the differences you make in a simple email or a text can totally change the way it's perceived. And so I think that, you know, like CAITLYN, like CAITLYN said, BC's really good at making you sort of question everything. And I think that my classes here have really asked me to question communication, what's the value of it, and what's the best way to really go about it and sort of approach it with more intention.
Thanks, Ben. Madison, are you a better friend? Are you a better person to live with now that you've been at Boston College? Or were you a much better friend before you ever came out here? What do you think? And if you're a better friend to people now, why do you think that's so?
I think one of the great things that Boston College has been able to teach me, and coming to college and sort of living among peers, is to take a step back and away from yourself. Sometimes you have to. Sometimes there's so much going on in your own life that you need to take a step back and just noticing things. I think that before coming to Boston College, I had a lot of want to help others, but I wasn't fully there yet with myself. I didn't have the space and the capacity to take too much time to actually devote meaningful help to others, which comes with age and maturity and being able to sort out yourself. But there's so much support here at BC, through mentors, through classes, where you can get to the point where you are so secure with yourself, that there's nothing that you won't do for your friends here. I lean on my friends so much, and I am so glad when they lean on me for help, because we are so truly all in this together. I think that being at BC has, and with my roommates now, I've been with random roommates 3 times now, based on different circumstances, and we've all been able to come together, which I think is so interesting. Based on the people that go to BC, you'll always be able to find friends and make friends and find a connection with someone, even if the first time you're meeting them is when you're moving into a room with them. But being able to totally give yourself over to someone, to be that person that people can ask for advice, it also comes with experience, and being able to try something new on your own first, and then being able to give that knowledge to your friends. And truly, there's nothing I wouldn't do for my friends. I've gotten lots of late night calls and stuff, which, you know, in high school, I probably would have freaked out a little bit and said, oh, I have homework to do. I have so much. But Boston College really and this was one of the reasons I decided to come to BC, is that it focuses so much on the whole person. It's not just academics, it's not just social life, it's not just well-being, it's everything. And because there's so much emphasis on that, you are able to be happy and secure with yourself, and therefore be able to help other people and to be a better friend.
It's a great answer, and I'm sure you are. Thanks, Madison. And just swinging up to you, Mary Claire, you know, I met you, you went to a small Catholic school, and, you know, I'm sure that being at a Catholic high school brought spirituality, at least to you, whether it was a big part of your life before you even went to high school or not, I don't know. But now that you're at a spiritual college, place that has a religious mission, do you feel like you're more spiritual? Do you feel like you're better at your spiritual life? And if so, how did that happen?
That's a good question. So yeah, I've been in Catholic schools my entire life, and I've always had the baseline, like, intellectual knowledge of things, and genuinely a piqued interest. I would always sign up for retreats ever since I was, like, young enough to. I would go to youth ministry, but I have to say, my faith was never challenged, and my faith was very much of a, like, God loves me, you know, kind of a thing. And then that's what we were told in, like, high school and middle school retreats, and we'd sing the songs and then kind of go on with our lives. Whereas easily my favorite thing about BC, which I didn't expect this coming in, has been the emphasis on the faith in action, and a faith that does justice, and what it actually means to put values into practice. And I think that and a lot of times they'll replace the word God with love in, like, prayers and poems, which I think is, you know, obviously so good to include a bunch of people, but that kind of a social awareness, which will impel to an action, I don't think I'd been challenged to do before I came to BC. But then I came here, and a lot of the people I really looked up to when I was a freshman were very involved in various, like, service communities. So rather than religion just being something we go and talk about for 48 hours on a retreat, or, like, in engaging Catholicism class, it's something where they're like, go into the Boston community and, like, do things. So, and, like, actually show that you do love each individual, like we're called to do, and that you do want to erase the margins that some people are pushed to. So like currently, for example, I'm in the Pulse program, which is another way to fulfill a theology elective, theology core curriculum. So in addition to learning about the Bible, we have 8 hours of community service work per week at specific locations. So I'm currently at Boston Healthcare for the Homeless program. So for those 8 hours a week, I am with people experiencing homelessness, and I almost serve as a nurse for them. And I'm in a foot clinic. So like I'll hold their feet and wash it, and then also talk to them about their lives or their days or whatever's on their mind. And it's been such an incredible way to truly encounter so many individuals from so many different backgrounds, and they always want to make a friend. I'm always excited to make a friend. So I feel like the faith and spirituality aspect of BC has propelled and ignited a lot more of like a conversion of the heart than just new thoughts and new reflections on retreats.
A wonderful answer, Mary Claire. Thank you. CAITLYN, going back over to you a little bit. I'm sure when you came to BC, you had expectations. You did a tour, perhaps. You looked online at the statistics. People told you about Boston College, but still, I'm sure there've been surprises. What has happened? What has BC thrown you that's been a complete surprise? You didn't think that was going to happen to you in college. You didn't think that BC could ever make you do that. But now that here we are and you're where you are now, what has surprised you about your life at Boston College that you just didn't see coming?
It's a really good question. You're really making me think on that one. I think, I had a lot of reservations and hesitations about kind of to the flip side of your experience, Mary Claire. Actually, I went to a public high school. I've gone to public school my whole life. And so I had a lot of hesitations about coming to a Catholic school and what that would mean for me and what that would look for me. I am someone who is spiritual in ways of reflection, and I felt very comfortable with the Jesuit tradition and the Jesuit model because I think that there was a lot of heart and soul poured into what it means to follow the Jesuit path of Christianity and Catholicism. But I was nervous to be around the people who, what would it mean to be around folks who are practicing in their faith, because it wasn't something that I had a great relationship with growing up. And so I think coming to BC, I was worried, would folks be pushing for change in the ways that I thought change could impact people? And then I think, to the same vein as what you were saying, Mary Claire, I was looking for that service component, and I didn't know what it would look like or what the intention behind it could be. And my sophomore year, or the end of my freshman year rather, I was so graced, in my shameless plug that I will now do, to find a home at the Boston College Women's Center, which is a place that I've worked at for 3 years now. It was actually a place, the class that I referenced earlier, it was a requirement the first week of class. We all walked down there together, all 80 of us, and crammed into one small space, and it was Cookie Monday at the Women's Center, and they passed around like a plate of cookies over everyone. But I have found a community that is so inclusive, and it expands all over campus, the inclusivity and the way that folks really call people into conversation about important things going on in our world. And through the Women's Center, I've been really blessed to experience what it's like to have a student-run space on campus. A lot of university offices are headed by administrators and things of that nature. And so the Women's Center operates as like a dual crisis center for students, but also as a space that operates programming. And it's for women specifically, but also folks of all gender identities to come and have conversation about what it means to create change. And within that, as a student leader, we operate as what we like to call feminist collaborative. So there's no hierarchy. Each of us head up projects on campus. So the project that I have been most grateful to be able to be a part of is the Women's Summit. So every year on campus, the Women's Summit is a day-long conference that brings folks who are involved in change making to be keynotes. And then it has workshops that happen with community organizers, with faculty on campus, professors, about important topics that span being a person in STEM to what it means to be like an entrepreneur in a startup, or what it means to engage in self-care in fields of mental health. And in the past, we've had folks like Ayanna Presley and Chanel Miller. And this year we're planning our process right now, so I won't say who's coming this year, but it's a very exciting person. And so I wasn't expecting to be launched into what is such a collaborative and open community that's entirely and collectively searching towards change and constantly changing the idea of what inclusivity means. So I've been really, really grateful and honored to have that experience here.
And Madison, expanding it out a little bit, when you go to high school, you're surrounded by teachers and coaches, and you develop these great relationships under that one roof, and you're at such a younger age and you're really reaching out for that. And I think sometimes the idea of college means there are these aloof professors and there's this big gulf between the adults and the students in this community. I would suspect that in your time, Madison, you've accumulated some people that are adults that care about your whereabouts at certain times and care about your future and support you and your big decisions. Was it easy to develop those kind of connections? Did you do it right away? Have you really done things to cultivate them, like go to coffee or visit office hours? Now, how have you gotten to know some of the adults here, and how would you recommend these new batch of first-year students next year, or if they're at BC or someplace else, to keep that going in order when they get to college?
Definitely. Thanks, Chris. I think my freshman year, it was the hardest to make these connections with faculty because I fully limited myself. I was experiencing a bit of burnout after high school, and all of the advice was to take it slow and to not fully dive into things. So I did that, and I would recommend diving in. By my sophomore year, I talked to a senior when I was a freshman, and she recommended that I start working for the Rob Sham Theater Art Center, which is our big theater here at BC. And I, in high school, did a lot of acting and directing and a little bit of stage management, but nothing technical. And she said, "Oh, you should be a technician. His name was George. Talk to George. He'll love you. It'll be fine." And so she graduated, and I sent him an email, and I was so stunned by how quickly someone immediately believed in me. I was so lost. If you've seen a theater booth, there's lots of buttons and switches. It's like being in the cockpit of an airplane. And I had no idea what was going on. And George immediately said, "You've got it. You can do it. I know you can." And now 3 years later, I'm a senior technician, and I get to run some of the really awesome shows that we have in Rob Sham that aren't the theater shows. So our dance shows, our a cappella shows, which is really, really special. And all throughout this time, George has been a really important advocate for myself, but has also taught me how to advocate to him for myself and to other adults in the building. And the relationship that we have is really special because I think that he was probably the first person at BC that immediately knew that I could do something that I didn't know I could do. Another thing that's really great about BC is our Courage to Know program, which is for freshmen, and I am a TA this semester for he's the chair of the theater department, Luke Jorgensen. And we are encouraged we have a TA section as well, where all of the TAs come together and we just talk about mentorship and what it means to be a good mentor, but also what it means to be a good mentee. So I know that Luke is another one of my mentors. He is my directing mentor, but just generally cares about my well-being, checks in with me, has directed shows that I've been a part of. So I know what it means to be a good mentee. When I am having a problem, I can just send Luke an email or a text. He will get back to me so quickly, check in with me all the time. There was an incident where I was working a game. I handle our mascot, Baldwin, and I was hit by a flying item out of the stands, and everyone was up in arms. Luke was like, where can I what if you need to Miss Courage to Know to go to UHS, University Health Services, go. Like, how do I find what happened? Immediately. So the faculty and the professors genuinely care so deeply. Anytime I have a question, Luke's office is the first place I go. I was in there today talking about this weekend and the casting process in the theater department, and also talking about things in the future and what I'm talking about tomorrow in Courage to Know. So the faculty and staff, they're really special here.
Maddie, I would have stepped up and found that person who threw something at you in the stands too. It's not just the theater department. The admissions people would have backed you up too. Just know that. Does it work in the reverse? Mary Claire, you're an older student now. You used to be a freshman, but now you're an older student. Do you feel that you're a mentor to younger students? Do you feel like you're valued for younger students to get advice from you? Do you feel empowered to get to know a lot of the younger students here? At other places, there's Greek life and there's a structure that people get to know upperclassmen, and it could either be a positive or negative experience, but it happens. How does it happen at Boston College? How do you put yourself out there when you're older to say, I want to be a part of younger students' lives here. I want to help them navigate Boston College. I was once in their shoes and I always look for help, so I want to be part of that. Have you found that now that you're one of the older students now?
I certainly have. It's kind of funny almost because I'm actually a resident assistant on Newton, which is the freshman campus, like a few miles away. So I love a lot of my time in a week is spent with freshmen. I have 30 on my hall, and then I have several in the clubs and organizations I'm a part of. As I mentioned earlier, I love spending time in like public spaces, so like dining halls, the bus rides, and just kind of talking to whoever's walking by. And freshmen are always excited to engage in conversation because everyone's looking for new friends. And it's been really, 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 really interesting, I think, to get to know them because it really, really shows how much has changed about me as a person since I was in their shoes, and also how much of how many similar problems everybody is facing. It's quite unbelievable. Like, a lot of them will come with the same concerns. Like, I don't have enough friends yet. I'm like, it's you and everybody else, and you're all gonna like make friends, and it's all good. And I also think that a lot of the younger, like first year, second year students have such an excited, youthful energy that doesn't necessarily go away when you're a junior or a senior, but there's just a little bit more that we know now and a couple more experiences we've done several times. So yeah, I think it's so much fun to just like, because we're not that far apart in age, but like so much happens each year of college. So it's just kind of fascinating to like walk with people on their different spots on that journey. And then also in like kind of on the flip side, I learn a lot by observing and like talking to freshmen because it's just like the way that they're so excited about being here like reminds me like, wow, I'm so lucky to be a student here. And like, yeah, and like this, like they're all so excited to go explore Boston, and I'm like, oh, I should be go and do that too. Like, it's almost like we learn to take it all for granted, but 4 years flies by, and I think that they know that, but we forget it as it continues to go forward. So yeah, I think it's just been an incredible way to pay forward the amount of people who have been so kind and merciful with me. And you never know how far a little kindness can go. Yeah.
Ben, to flip it over to you just for a quick answer on this one. When is it hard to be at Boston College? We've alluded to these little struggles in a lot of people's lives, but when is it hard to be at BC, and what do you do when it's hard at Boston College? What kind of resources are there? What kind of things do you do when it's hard at Boston College?
Yeah, so I've had definitely periods where it's been harder to be at BC, especially in the beginning of my time here. I'd also say that at times during last year when everything was pretty shut down and we were all on campus. I was living slightly off campus in a house. And I think that, I felt pretty isolated just because most of my classes were online, student clubs and organizations were online. You weren't really allowed to see a lot of people. Even going to the gym had some restrictions. And I really sort of reached out to my core group of friends that I'd built up, and they weren't necessarily a group, but they were just a bunch of very strong individual friendships. And I have friends who have, utilized our Office of Health Promotion and our university counseling services, which are certainly great resources. But for me, the most important sort of resource to get through that was just my individual friends that I had developed really strong relationships with. And I think that everyone, to an extent, felt isolated. But having each other and sort of having these relationships, this level of comfort where you can just be totally honest with each other, talk about what's going on in your life, really allowed me to come to terms with what I was experiencing. It obviously wasn't what I envisioned when I came to BC in the first place, and I felt like as soon as I was hitting my stride, we sort of went into lockdown for the pandemic. So sort of to reconcile those feelings and realize that everyone's going through this to some extent really sort of helped me get through that. And I've just found that during my time here, when I'm having a hard time, faculty have been there for me, my friends, everyone. It's amazing how strong the community is and how much everyone wants to help. It's not that they're willing to help, they proactively want to help you.
CAITLYN, we talked about so many differences, but what's the same? Like, what can someone in high school bring with them to college to make them more successful in college? We talked about having to adapt and change and try new things and do that. What's something that, because you did it in high school, you are better for it in college?
I think one thing that you did in high school was where I hope you're all at now, is be excited for the next thing. I think one of the main reasons that I came to BC over other places, and I knew that this was a home for me, is because I wanted a college that was formative. I wanted an experience that was going to transcend just 4 years. And the reason that I actually solidified my choice to come here is because in my admitted students day panel, the first thing that I forget, it was a Jesuit priest who was speaking, and he said, if these are the best 4 years of your life at Boston College, then we have not prepared you for the world. And I thought that's something that's like, it literally almost makes me cry every time I think about it, because it's just stuck with me for 4 years. The energy and the excitement and the will to do your classes and to have just a good time and look forward to what's next in high school. Take that with you to BC because you'll need it here. It's not over after these 4 years. These 4 years are prepping you for what life will be after. And this community, it doesn't go away. Stay in touch with your friends. Stay in touch with your family when you come here. Tell them all of the things that you're learning and you're excited about, because all of that excitement that you have, you'll have here and you'll take with you when you leave, because BC never leaves you.
What a great moment to end on. Jeez, how can it be better than that? Well, CAITLYN, you really nailed it, and all of you nailed it. What a great exchange of some of your experiences, some advice, ways that you've navigated life at Boston College. I think this has been great. And I know we didn't talk about statistics and we didn't talk about stuff. If you want to talk about stuff, look, these guys put their email addresses right next to their names. They're willing to keep the conversation going if there are questions you have about programs and clubs and organizations and classes and some of the things that they talked about today. And they did such a great job. Remember, Boston College, any college, there's a communities. These are made up. We're not looking for one type of person. There are many type of people and many types of paths that go through Boston College. But we hope that you are affected by great people like this. Great job, guys. This was really spectacular. And for all of you that have joined us tonight and for any of the other programs, we really thank you for your interest in Boston College and wanting to be part of the discussion about what life is in college. CAITLYN nailed it. Like, this is the best. Like, I went to college and I never left. Like, college is awesome. And the excitement that I know that the application process certainly brings with it some anxiety. And like all of you talked about, there's some new things. Yeah, like Madison, you said you're going to be sleeping like this far away from some stranger like every year. Yeah, it's crazy. But don't let those kind of anxieties get in the way of the fact that this is such a special time in your life, and to be challenged yet inspired, and to have all these people supporting you at such a great time in your life. That's what it's all about. All of you guys did such a great job. Thanks so much. And again, for all of you that tuned in, these will be available on recording very soon. We'll put them up on BC's website very soon. And if you want to stay in touch with any of our panelists, they're pleased to do so. Thanks for tuning in. Good luck. We really appreciate your time. Thanks for your interest in Boston College. And to all you panelists, great job. Thanks so much. We'll see you on campus tomorrow. Good night, everyone.